Paul Kangemi out of St. Petersburg, Florida. And he is a candidate for mayor. And it's amazing that he is able to run for mayor after espousing this level of bigotry that I'm going to attempt to play for you in a moment. But I want you to hear the level of open bigotry that is now acceptable in the United States. And I want to be clear that I say this precisely. It's not that this is new. It's not that this level of bigotry is new. It's not that this level of racism is new. In fact, it has always been here. But there was a brief moment in time in American history where, recent American history, where you couldn't run for dog catcher, let alone mayor of a city, espousing this type of rhetoric. And now we've seen such a shift in the American discourse. Quite honestly, the overall American discourse, we've seen quite a shift that now you can say the wildest, most racist thing and run for office and be given a platform and have the expectation to be given a platform. And I think that might be the part that kind of drives me the wildest, is that not only are you given a platform, but these people, these racists, these white supremacists have the expectation that they are owed that platform, and that if someone doesn't give them a platform to espouse their racist rhetoric, then they are losing their First Amendment right. There was a time where it wasn't like that, just in recent history, not in the overall arching American history. Throughout all the overall arch of American history, this is pretty status quo. I think we can all agree there that for most of American history, bigotry and racism was the mainstream. And I'm reminded of the 1920 Scopes trial. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because there was a level of evangelical religiosity that was rejecting all forms of science. And what happened was it got exposed during this trial. It got exposed to the point where the entire nation was able to see the willful ignorance of an entire group of people and their rejection of science. And the exposure embarrassed them so much, at least in the broader discourse, that that sect of Christianity had to go into seclusion. It never went away. It never fully disappeared. It just went into seclusion. Same thing with open bigotry. We had a moment, a brief moment in the public discourse, in the broader public discourse, where someone like this guy from St. Petersburg, Florida, would have been shamed out of the mainstream, shamed to the point where he would not be able to run for mayor, not because constitutionally or he was rejected legally, but because he would know that his type was not welcome here. Well, apparently, tide has turned back in the opposite direction. I'm going to give this a shot, and let's see if we can hear this.
Mr. Neville, you and your people, you talk about reparations. The reparations that you talk about, Mr. Neville, your people already got your reparations. Your reparations came in the form of a man named Barack Obama.
Please hold your response.
My advice to you, if you don't like it here in America, planes leave every hour from Tampa Airport. Go back to Africa. Go back to Africa. Go back.
Side of the Ricks. Not in fact.
All right. So two things. I mean, it's not even really worth discussing the substance of what he said because it's without substance. But just to make sure that we highlight what this fool said. This fool said, your reparations came in the form of Barack Obama. Reparations for black people, your people, your people. Your people want reparations. You got reparations, he said. And you got it from Barack Obama becoming president. In other words, us electing a single black man should fix everything. everything that was ever wrong in American history with regard to people of color. We got us a black president, so everything's fine. Then the very next thing out of his mouth is, if you don't like what happens here in America, go back to Africa. There's an airport, planes leave every hour, go back to Africa. Now this fool is running for this is his third time running for mayor, so he's a habitual candidate and a habitual loser. But I bring it up because the tide is turning in America. This type of vitriol is becoming mainstream. Again, it never went anywhere. No one's arguing that it went anywhere. But I'm sorry, I don't want my racism out loud, brash, and running for office. I don't want the bigotry that's going to always see. I don't believe that we're going to ever get rid of bigotry in America. We're never going to get rid of racism in America. But we can get to a point where fools like this are not welcome into the mainstream of the public square in the public discourse. That's the best we can hope for. That's the best we can hope for because because of their freedoms, right? If you want to talk about freedoms and the First Amendment, you have the freedom to be a bigot. You have the freedom to be a piece of shit. This totally can be that. But that doesn't mean that we have to give you a platform to espouse this across the nation. And what's happening now is that we've seen a dramatic shift in the number of people. The case in point, Richard Spencer, the neo-Nazi, the white nationalist, alt-right, whatever you want to call him, Richard Spencer got his platform as a result of Donald Trump winning the White House. That's how Richard Spencer got his platform. And it signifies a turn in the American discourse where now two things are more possible than ever before. Number one, you can be loud and proud with your bigotry. You can be louder and prouder with your racism than you can being a minority or a marginalized group. Every Tom, Dick, and redneck in America feels like this is their time because their man is in the White House. Their guy is in the White House, and they can say and do whatever. I mean, this is their day. It's time. It's the South will rise again, or in this case, the bigots will rise again. That's number one. So the bigots have their heyday now because of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's open bigotry. And because that's in the White House, all of the people who were relegated to the dregs of society now feel like they could be out loud and proud. The second thing that's happened is because of how completely and utterly feckless the president of the United States is. He is the quintessential example of mediocrity that has been promoted onto us, propelled onto us because of wealth. But he is still highly mediocre, highly incompetent. He is grossly incompetent. And because of that, you have people who are, everybody thinks they can run for office now. Sure, fine. Technically, everybody can run for office, fine. But I do want someone with enough working digits to be able to read. I want someone with enough working digits to be able to lead. I want someone with enough functioning, with enough level of intelligence to understand what's going on in the world and to be able to put themselves in the context of what's happening in the world. But I digress. But because Donald Trump is the level of incompetence or demonstrates the level of incompetence that he does, even the town idiot, which this Paul Kagemi is, even they feel like they can aspire to something more than being the village idiot. And so this guy, there's nothing of substance to discuss in terms of what he's said. But I will point out that this guy has been arrested for assaulting, for a confrontation rather, at KFC because they got his chicken order wrong while he was running for mayor. This wasn't when he was a teenager. I didn't look up anything from when he was a teenager. I just looked up what he did since he's been running for mayor. He's been arrested for assaulting people at a KFC. He's also been arrested for felony elder abuse, because his mother, 87-year-old mother, had to be checked into a hospital in intensive care because of bed sores. He neglected his own mother so much so that she had to go into intensive care for bed sores. And I point this out because how can you be a white supremacist and nothing about you is fucking supreme. Nothing. Nothing is supreme about you. Not your level of intellect, not your presentation, not your home life, just nothing about you is supreme. And yet they feel like they have the standing to actually talk down to the black community. That's what I never ceases to amaze me. I'm like, if you're going to be a white supremacist, at least work on your supremacy first. Like, be more supreme than Sideshow Bob. Be more supreme than, than the local jokel, the village idiot. But yet you want to tell us and lecture black people, and marginalized people, people of color, women, minorities, the LGBTQ. You want to lecture us about our lives. I don't even know. I mean, you know what? There is nothing else to say about this except for the fact that as long as we have a president in the White House who continuously demonstrates a level of ignorance that dumb people can aspire to. I just don't have any other way to say it tonight. I don't. I mean, I mean, maybe it's good. Let me be nice. Everybody likes me to be nice. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's good for the village idiot to aspire to something more. Maybe it's good for them to look and see them, because we say this all the time about black people. It's like, black people, we want to see ourselves represented. We want to see ourselves represented on TV. We want to see a representation of blackness in office. We want to see a representation of blackness in our movies. So maybe idiots in town, village idiots need to see themselves represented, just not in the White House. But now they have the greatest representative of them all representing them in the White House. So they can aspire to more. Be all that you can be, Paul Conjimmy. Be all that you can be. But anyway, let me leave this man alone. There's no reason for me to, his life is sad enough for me not to. But I'm curious as to see what St. Petersburg, Florida is going to do. I know Florida well. And St. Petersburg is pretty diverse. Maybe this is why he's run for office 3 times and he's never won. That could be it. But we'll see. We'll see if exactly where, if he gets any votes. If this man gets more than 2 votes, him, his own, and his mother, if she's still living, if he gets more than 2 votes, there's something wrong in St. Petersburg, Florida. But it is Florida, so I digress.